Hi, in this video I'm going to demonstrate how to remove a basin and also clean up the dirt that happens often in kitchens. You can see this the mold that comes here. I'm going to show you how to repair that, remove a sink, remove a tap, and I'm going to be swapping it for a double basin. So there's going to be a few things demonstrated in this video. You can see here this is a double basin. This customer wants me to change the single basin to a double basin. I'm going to show you how to do the fittings. So this is going to be quite a long video. The first thing we've got to do is remove the old basin, and there are holding brackets underneath, and what has happened is this has been siliconed in. Very important to have silicone. You'll need lots of silicone. So what we want to start with is to just loosen the screws that are holding in this basin. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just show you the screws, which I'm going to now loosen. So you can see there's a screw, nice and dirty in here, and if you follow it along you'll find quite a few of these bracket screws. So what you're just going to do is you just got to unscrew them. Careful of spiders, as you can see there's a spider's web. So I'm going to unscrew these with my screwdriver, and you can see here's residue of silicone, so it's going to be almost impacted, so there might be some cutting that one needs to do. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to unscrew these, each one of these screws. There are some that might actually be wedged into the wood, so you might actually have to take a screwdriver and literally unwedge it like that. You can see, so that it'll allow you to release the basin. Okay, it might happen that one of the screws might be seized because of the water, maybe some water is leaking. Now in this case I've got a screw that cannot be unscrewed, it's seized. So what you can do is you can actually just, as long as you unwedge it out of the wood, it will allow the basin to move. Just do not damage the wood unnecessarily. So in this case I have one where I cannot unscrew that screw, so now I'm going to literally use a screwdriver and unwedge it, so that when I do pull out the sink it won't scratch the wood and tear off some of the fascia of the surface that the customer will see. Right, now once you have removed all the clips and unscrewed them so that they can be released when you lift the sink up, you'll need to release it from the pipe. So what you do is you unscrew here, this is usually a flat, and you unscrew that. And you usually just twist it, and that's it. Now we're ready to remove the sink itself. Okay, the next step now is to remove the tap itself. Make sure it's off, so I've switched off the water source. You're going to have to remove this tap. Now, the way this tap is fastened on here, there are these two pipes. So these are twist-off pipes. So you can either loosen them here, and then they'll be free to twist, or you can loosen, I don't know if you can see at the back there, let's see if we can get closer, there is a nut. That nut needs to be released. When that nut is released, then the tap will be able to move freely. You see it's held by this steel wedge. So what you're going to do is you're going to need to get a socket set or pliers and just twist that nut off. Right, once it's finger loose, you can completely unscrew it and then pull the tap through. I'll show you. Let me get the camera there. Right, here's the nut. Now I pull the tap through gently because I do not want to pierce these pipes on this sharp sink. So what I can do now is I can rotate these. Let's have a closer look here at what you're going to see. I need to release these pipes out of this unit. Now these pipes just screw in there, so I can actually unscrew them manually. You can either unscrew it at the join where I showed you earlier, or you can just unscrew them one by one here. Alright, I recommend you loosen it from the join. You will need a shifting spanner, so I recommend you release these from the join. You'll need a shifting spanner just to release these. There we go. Now in my case there's a join. In your case you might not have a join. I have a join because it connects, it's a splitting system, but yours might be connected directly to the outlet over there. So the point is you'll have to release it from the outlet. Right, I'm going to release the next one. That's just the water stored in the pipe. Okay, the next one I'm going to release from the tap itself. There we go. Right, now I'm free to rotate these and unscrew them out of the pillar tap. Right, so we're going to be turning it anti-clockwise. Anti-clockwise, and this one is almost done. There it is. See? And the next one, anti-clockwise. There it is. Now, very important, do not lose these pieces because we're going to need this for the next installation, for the next basin. So let's put this back neatly. There's a rubber seal there so the water doesn't fall in. And then the nut, and there's actually a clamp as well. So I'm going to fish out that clamp quickly. There's the clamp. So I'm just going to put this back on here so that it's safely stored, so when I do the next tap we won't have a problem. Right, put this away. A scraper. I recommend the scraper, and you just need to make sure that you are wedging all the silicone that is joining the sink top to the formica. And the reason why you've got to do this is because if you lift this up, you don't want any of the formica to peel up, and then you'll get a piece, like a chip coming out here. So we still want to keep the integrity of the tabletop, because maybe you don't want to change your whole tabletop, you're just changing the sink. So that is why you first go with the scraper, and you go around here just to make sure that the formica will not lift up. You see here it's very tight here, so it's going to be a bit tricky there. Right, this, yes. Another option is you might want to tap it with a hammer as you go along. You might just want to tap it a bit with a hammer. Be very careful not to gouge the tabletop. Okay, it's a good sound when you hear like a peeling, like a. Then you hear the silicone is separating. Right. So now it is. Now it is almost ready to be lifted. I'm going to wedge a screwdriver there. You can see how easily it comes out. Look at that. There comes the old sink. There comes the old sink. Again, when you lift the sink out, remember, don't grab it and yank it, because you might catch some of the formica and peel it and break it, like what has happened there or this with somebody before, or maybe this is just rotten. But let's take the old sink out. Now what I'm going to do is just bring the camera a bit closer. Now what I need to do is pull out the old clamps, because the new dishwasher will have it, the new sink will have its own clamps. So I'm taking out all the old clamps that were wedged there. Right. So all the clamps are now removed. Now we need to take some measurements. Open your new sink. Right, so now here's the new sink. Let's move this a bit back. Right, so here's the new sink. Now, the first thing you want to notice is that, will this sink fit? You're going to need to take some measurements. This is a standard size. So you want to get all this rubber, this packaging off. Now, don't put the new nice sink on the dirty surface. So I'm keeping this sticky stuff on while I take measurements, because I might need to cut. Now, as I can see already, there is a part here where I'll need to cut, because the old sink ended here while the new sink is a bit longer. So I'll need to now cut and extend this sink hole a little bit more. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a measurement. I'm going to turn the sink upside down, and I'm going to measure from the one side to the other, and I get 11250 or 11257, and that's important because that's how big the hole is. Now, very important, you see, if I put my hand here, I will cut myself. This is very sharp. In fact, be very careful on the edges of a sink, because you can really slice your hand up quite nicely there. Okay, in terms of the width, it is a standard size. You can just verify it. The gap here is currently 43, and the gap here is 42.5. So that's perfect. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and get a jigsaw and cut to make the hole bigger for this new sink. Right, now we're going to use a jigsaw. This is a jigsaw. The beauty of a jigsaw is that it's a small handheld saw that allows you to cut and turn. And as you can see, I'm going to want to make whatever's on this side, but extend it. So I'm going to wire up the jigsaw. Just be careful, there is water here. So just be, one has to be cognizant when you're working near water with electrical appliances. Okay, let's see if this is on now. It is. But now, how am I going to measure this? before you start cutting, you've got to look underneath here and see what it is that you're cutting through. So we're going to do a little site inspection here. What am I going to be cutting through? Alright, so according to me, there's just more wood, and on this side also just more wood. So in this case I'm very lucky, there's no for example cupboard doors or so on, so I'm just going to cut directly, and this place really needs a clean here. Alright, so I'm going to measure to make sure that this hole will be big enough for my new sink. Let's get the jigsaw out of the way. Okay, it is 113 or 11257. I've remeasured it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my ruler over there. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to measure the 113 now. And I'm just going to mark it. You should mark it with a pencil. I'm just, yeah. Get a pencil now. (113), there it is. Now I'm going to mark it again there. I'm going to measure on that side. Okay, 113. Right, now I'm going to move the tape and join these two lines together, there to there. Right, so that is where I'm going to be cutting to. Now I must just keep the same line that's currently here. Might be helpful to just clean a bit of this excess silicone. The reason I'm not cleaning everything yet is after I cut it's going to be a mess itself. So now I'm just going to extend this. I'm lining it up here, that's why I'm using this ruler, and I'm just going to go like that. Right, now on the other side, same story. I'm going to just scrape some of this excess silicone away. Now the person who cut before kind of came in here a little bit, so I know that when I'm cutting I'm going to have to go straight here and actually extend this part, even though it is curved in a bit. Okay, I'm going to try to put the ruler on the outside. I can see there's the line, yes. There we go. Very important. Keep this area nice and dry. It's all wet here. I think there was a lot of water that was spilling out here. Okay. Right, now we can do this again. Right, so I now have the measurements. Now before we cut, let's just make some checks. The width of this gap is 43. Now I'm going to check it here on this side as well, just in case errors crept in. Now, just align that. 43.5, you can see, so it's actually, there is a little problem. And that one, (43.5) over here, 43 almost 43.4 almost. So what's actually happening is this thing is going wider and wider. So just keep in mind that I can actually see here it was getting too wide. So when I cut it, I must just actually be a little bit inwards, because the person who cut this before actually cut it a little bit skew. And I can see that from the way that the sink, that's why I didn't clean it. I can see it from the way the sink was sitting. The the lip of the sink, as you can see, there's the correct line. So what I'm going to do is, this is a good, useful explanation here, because what's going to happen is this line is carrying on going wider, and you can see that this lip here was actually fatter and it's going thinner. So it wasn't actually a good idea to measure from there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually just bring this line in a little bit. There we go. Half a centimeter. At the back, I'm satisfied this was cut straight. So now it's time to check once again, because once you've cut this tabletop, you can't uncut it. So let's just make sure that it is the right length. We've got 113. That is correct. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to cut here first, and you look over the line, you will see there's an arrow, well, almost like an arrow there, and then the blade runs in alignment with this join here. So you follow your eye on that line, on the line here. So you must always look on top, from on top, and then do a practice cut. So what that means is I'm just going to cut a little bit and then see if I'm going straight. Right. Keep in mind this is very thick, so it's going to take a bit of time to cut over here. Yes, there was the error line and there's the correct line, so you can see I'm on the correct line, and here I go. Right, so what has happened there is the blade has popped out of its... So I just got to loosen these screws, put the blade in, and then make sure those screws are tight. So what you've got to do now is switch it off the electricity. Okay, just to show you how to fit the blade while we're busy here, because you saw my blade popped out. So you just push it in there all the way, make sure these screws were loose. Once it's in there, I hold it in, remember the power's off, and I tighten each screw one by one. And I go back to this one, and I secure it nicely. Okay, it's important with the jigsaws, don't press very hard unless you've got a very high or a very powerful jigsaw. Switch on the electricity, and now it's time to cut again. Right, there is the line I'm aiming for. So what I'm going to do is I start turning quite early, because this is very thick wood. So the beauty of the jigsaw is it allows you to make a circular cut. So now I'm already over there. I took a pause because remember the blade gets very hot, and I'm already starting to turn. But turn gently, don't force it. You just turn gently, and then slowly it will make a half circle. Make sure you've got enough space to work. Just cooling the blade down. See there's the turn, and there's the line. See, now what I'm going to do is just move this excess sawdust away, and now I'm going to come from this side and I'm going to go there, turn and bring there. I have a bit of a challenge here. As you can see, this thing is in the way. I might even have to use the saw from underneath, but you've got to be careful when you use it from underneath that it can you're going to have to remeasure if you use it from underneath. Right, it's a good idea to invest in some ear protection. I use these peltors, which are actually shooting ear protection, and just put it on. Now, very important, this thing now needs to be supported. If you don't support it, it could break and tear the formica. So while I'm cutting now, I'm going to hold this to support it. There we go. Now I'm going to check that the new sink fits in here. Right. This sink's going to fit perfectly. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to clean up here. I'm going to make sure that the lines are straight. It's a little bit unbalanced. It might just be because of the formica. I'm just going to make sure there's nothing wedging it in the way. So now it's time to clean. Remember that you're going to use a good quality silicone to fasten this down, and then, well, to actually stick this down, but then you're going to clip it. It's very important to have a clean surface when you're working with silicone, and dry. At this point, you are free to now completely take off this plastic. Sandpaper is also useful at this point. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to scrape off all this old silicone here. And I can see that it was a good time to change it because the formica is actually getting swollen in some parts. And that will affect the way the sink sits. So this is, if it was any later than this, like here it's gotten a little bit swollen, then this, I would have had to have changed this whole tabletop. This is also a good time to clean the silicone at the back here. This is where you take a blade or a screwdriver and you literally just cut it. You literally just take a screwdriver and you go like this. Don't be too rough, you don't want to damage the tiles. And now that you've loosened it, you take the scraper and you remove the old silicone. You can see how easy the silicone is now coming off. There we go. Okay, now a damp cloth, very helpful at this point. Get all the dirt away, excess dirt. The cleaning takes the longest here. Right. Pass me the left there, please. Right. Now go around with some spirits, some meths, just to take away the actual dirt. Clean the dirt and to make it very clean. Remember to be very careful here with your fingers. side. Make sure all the sticky cellophane covering is off. Especially on the mating surface. Right, now I'm going to seat it. And carry on removing the cellophane. Right, now you must decide how it's going to sit. Should be a pack of clamps. These clamps are going to clamp the sink down in the position you want it after you have glued it. So I'm just going to release these clamps from the packet, and you can actually install them so long because it's got a clip there and a clip there. What happens is you could, if you slide it in here, it's a one-way system. So once you clip it, it's clipped. And you can separate the part that wedges into the wood by unscrewing the screw. So you can decide now, depending on how much space you've got there. I will start to slot these in. And remember that the teeth here and this clip face outwards, so you can slot this in and it fits one way. So once you press it, it's now stuck. You just got to press it in a bit. You just go, yeah, so starting now. So what you've got to do is you've got to slide this on these hooks, but don't just put these hooks in without checking. What I mean is you've got to first check under under your tabletop here if the wood is available there to put the clip on, because you won't have enough clips to do every single one of these. Well, it depends on the manufacturer, but I can count now there are less clips than holes. So obviously a corner is very important. And I have checked out, so that's clipped now. Now what I want to do is I want to remove the top here. Just loosen it. See, that allows me to loosen it, and then this thing moves back. The next one, I'm going to skip a little bit and put it here. And then push that back. Just be very careful that you don't press your fingers on there, else you'll be in for a nice cut. The next one, I'm going to skip a little bit and skip one and put it here. So remember, this is actually the back, because once I install it, this is the back. So you must keep in mind, will you be able to have access to get to these screws? So this is the back, so I'm going to put this one here. Right, a good idea is to go corner, 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 and then in the sensitive places you can add extras. So I'm just going to go corners now. Something very important is you'll have to decide how you like to work. The tap. Do you want to, you could drill the hole first before you install the basin. It really depends on you. I've done it both ways. What the benefit of doing it first is that you can have the basin maybe on the floor and drill and so on. The benefit of doing it last is that the basin is fastened and you can drill without the basin moving. So it really depends on you. So I'm going to install the sink first, and then I'm going to come and do my drillings for this tap. So I haven't forgotten about the tap. I just wanted to tell you at this point, you could have maybe didn't put maybe before you put the clamps on, then did your tap fitting. Obviously you wouldn't install the tap yet, you just make the hole. Or you could do it the way I'm doing it. I'm going to install the whole basin, then I'm going to drill. It really depends on the access and how you prefer to work. Either way is fine. The only problem with doing it afterwards, remember that the silicone is going to be wet, so you are going to be working with silicone around you. I don't mind that. You're going to need silicone cartridges. I recommend high quality silicones. You're going to use clear or white depending on what you prefer. I prefer the clear, and then if I'm going to use the white, it'll be for the back. So right now I'm going to start with the clear. So you can fairly liberally silicone the mating surface of the sink. Like so. Now you're probably wondering, what do you do on these corners? Well, we're going to silicone on both sides. So I'm going to shift it here. There we go. And at the back, which is actually the front, right? Don't leave any gaps. Right, this is already done. Okay, now what I recommend you do is with your finger, actually make sure it's spread right to the edge of the mating surface of the sink, right to the edge. I'm actually just making sure it's, and don't worry about if it peels over the sink. You're going to wipe it off once it's flush. Okay, so this just makes sure that there's lots of silicone there, generous supply of silicone. Right, now what I do is I put a bit of silicone on the actual wood itself. So I'm just going to move the sink. And I specifically put silicone here. Now remember, as I said, you are going to wipe it off, so don't worry about if there's too much. You almost can't have too much. And then it's important to just go over it with your finger. Right. Right. Now I'm going to wedge the sink in the back first, like so, and then the clamps I'm going to push them. Yeah, I'm going to push them in. As you can see, that's done. Now these ones here. There we go. Now what you do is you get underneath, you tap those fingers of those clips into the wood, and then once they're biting into the wood, you tighten it and it will actually pull the sink down. You can already see it's got a nice flush fit, and now I'm just positioning it in the way I want it. So I'm just aligning the sink the way I want it. Right, so as you can see, there's the clip. Now what you've got to do is you've got to wedge the clip into the wood. See, there's the wood. So you've got to get that clip wedged onto the wood. Right, so what you've got to do is you've got to get this clip wedged onto the wood, like so. You can see there. Now I'm going to wedge it like that. And then I'm going to just tap it to the hammer just to bite into the wood a little bit. And now I'm going to tighten it. But before I tighten it, I'm going to wedge all of them into the wood. All of these need to be now wedged into the wood. Right, so what you want to do is you want to measure how wide this hole is here on the tap, so that you don't make the hole too big. So this is 4. So anything, if I make a hole of 3 by 3, well, 3, then that will be sufficient. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to drill a hole dead center using steel drill bit. Okay, I'm going to put it dead center. Right, so now I'm going to drill. I'm going to place the drill dead center. There we go. And I'm going to take the biggest drill bit I have. Which is a 10 mil, and I'm going to now increase the size of this hole until I get to 3 mil. Or, sorry, 30 mil. Ear protection is recommended. Okay, what you can do is you can make 3 concentric holes around the first one. Now keep checking the width. Okay, I'm at 2.5 and this side is 2. Right, I have to make another one over here. Right, now it's literally time to bore out the holes with the drill. Okay, you can see that. Now I'm going to use the drill. Right, to give you an idea of what it looks like now. Right, so it needs to be quite a bit bigger than that. Now I'm screwing it into the tip. Making sure it's tight. Now the other one I'm going to do from underneath, including the bracket and the rubber. And then you will use the Allen key, or the pliers, or a socket set is probably the best. And then the tap is fastened. Then you just have to do the sink. You just have to do the sink strainers on dirt traps. Okay, there was a seat that this tap did sit on, which actually forgot to put on, so let's put that on now. There we go. Right, now I'm going to go do this from underneath. Right, time to insert the traps. What you've got to do is you've got to open it up, and you will see that there is a little gasket here. Very important is to clean the surface before you put this on. Very, very clean. Both sides. one and then the other. Okay, now those are in. Now what we're going to do is we're going to seal them from the bottom. You put your rubber seal here and the rubber seal, and you've got these two screws here. So what happens is from underneath you screw in the screw. Firstly I do it by hand. A flat screwdriver can be used. Okay, I just do it by hand now. I'm not ready to fasten it fully tight. I'm now going to do the other one. Right. Okay, now very important to make sure they're seated exactly in the middle. Now you can tighten it with the screwdriver. It's a large flat screwdriver is needed. Right, don't go crazy. Remember that it is a plastic housing. Right, that's sufficient. Now they're tight in. In my case, I bought this set which makes it quite a lot easier. This is what the aim is to look like that. So you can see it's a much easier way of doing the plumbing. It's quite simple. Right, you've got to cut these to size. So for example, now I want to join this one here. So this one is going to go here. So what I've got to do is I've got to cut it to the same length as this one. So you can see it follows. Right, you put the washer on, make sure it clean it. Right, one. Put the clamp on first, and then the washer. Now we tie these. That. So don't make it fully tight yet. It's just finger tight. Okay. Right. Now we're going to connect that side like that, and now this one is going to connect there like that. So what I need to do now is to cut it that it goes in there. So I'm looking at about a length of that. So I can cut this one now. Maybe a bit more. Okay. Right. Now we need to connect the outlet pipe into this, which means I'm actually going to cut this trap. Okay, I've now done the jigsaw puzzle here, and I've connected it to my trap. Important is don't make anything fully tight yet. You must be able to move. Now I'm going to align them up and see if, yeah, there we go. See, they are exactly the right length. So now I can tighten it here and tighten it here. Okay, and I just want to check it. Right. Nothing is being bent or pushed very hard. Now I can tighten each one individually. Right. That's it. Now I can switch on the tap and test it. Right, now I'm checking for leaks. Right, now I'm going to open the basin, and that will all empty, and let's see if there are any leaks. Right, I am getting one leak here. Right, I just need to, I forgot to put the clamp around this guy here. So that's the only place I'm getting a leak, is on here. And that's fine, I'll just clamp that. Now the other basin. While that fills up, I'm going to go get a clamp, the correct plumbing clamp. So I've just used a very high tensile cable tie, and I'm just putting it here for the meantime. So ideally you should use a clamp, but this cable tie should do the trick. Right, now I'm going to empty the basin, which is full, and I'm going to look for any leaks. Right, to just clear the excess scraps away. Now the very last thing that one needs to do is reseal the back. Now for that I'm going to use the white silicone. Well, I'm going to do just take off this old silicone. I'm now going to use a white silicone followed by a clear silicone. Seal the back there so no water gets in there. I don't know if I have enough silicone yet, but all you do is you very gently just put a little bit. Doesn't matter if there's a few gaps. Right. With your finger, you just smooth it over, going over the places where there are gaps. Make sure that the surface is completely dry. The silicone will not stick to a wet surface. Push the silicone into the gap if there's a gap between the wood and the tile. Right, need some wet cloth. What I recommend is that you go over it twice. You wait for this to dry, and then tomorrow or 4 to 6 hours later you can go over again. I have some excess here. I'm just going to wipe it a bit off. And that is how you change a sink to a dual sink. The only thing that needs to be done now is we need to wait for the silicone to dry, and then the sink needs to be cleaned. And that's it. Thanks for watching.